Imagine a state as big, bold, and deeply rooted in tradition as Texas, suddenly finding itself at the center of a new political experiment. A young Democrat, just 36 years old, stepping forward and saying the words many in his party have been hesitant to utter out loud. The Democratic Party needs a reset. Not a tweak, not a minor adjustment, but a genuine reset. And now, against all odds, this lawmaker is aiming for the United States Senate. His move isn't just about ambition. It's about challenging the very structure and direction of his party. And his candidacy could very well reveal the future of Democratic politics in Texas and beyond. This lawmaker, a state representative with a reputation for speaking his mind, has become a kind of outsider within his own political family. For years, Democrats in Texas had faced an uphill battle in a state dominated by Republicans. Time after time, their candidates have come close but failed to break through the deep red wall. Yet here comes a man who believes the national Democratic leadership has lost touch with the people it claims to represent. His message is not about being the loudest in the room, but about rethinking the entire strategy, about reaching communities that feel abandoned, and about bringing a voice of faith and conviction into a conversation that often feels overly polished and disconnected. When he first announced his bid, the reaction was mixed. Some dismissed him immediately as naive, too young, too untested to take on one of the most difficult political challenges in the country. Others, however, felt a spark. They recognized that Texas has been changing. Its cities have grown, its demographics are shifting, and many younger voters are frustrated with the same old political battles. This candidate's religious background, something that once might have been seen as an obstacle for a Democrat, could actually serve as a bridge. He speaks openly about his faith, but he doesn't weaponize it. Instead, he frames it as a guiding principle for justice, fairness, and compassion. For Texans, especially in rural areas where faith is central to life, this could resonate in ways that traditional Democratic messaging often does not. Picture him stepping up to the microphone in a modest community hall. A crowd of locals gathered, some skeptical, others curious. He doesn't start with talking points crafted in Washington. He doesn't lean on generic promises. Instead, he looks directly at the audience and tells them that he is tired of watching working families struggle while politicians in the nation's capital argue endlessly without results. He admits that Democrats have often failed to connect with everyday Texans. He says plainly, "Our party needs a reset." And in that moment, there is a pause in the room, because those words don't sound like a speech. They sound like a confession, and more importantly, a challenge. The road ahead for him is brutally steep. The incumbent senator is backed by powerful networks, years of fundraising, and the weight of Texas's conservative base. National Democrats may or may not throw their full support behind this young challenger, especially since he has been openly critical of their direction. But that is what makes his run fascinating. He is not presenting himself as a polished insider waiting his turn. He is entering the fight with the raw energy of someone who believes the system is broken and must be rebuilt, not patched up. Imagine the strategy sessions in his campaign office, a small rented space in Austin, where volunteers sit around folding tables, laptops open, phone banks buzzing. They know they don't have the financial muscle of the Republican machine, but what they do have is energy. They talk about reaching communities often ignored, church groups, young Latino voters, suburban mothers frustrated with rising costs, college students who feel cynical about politics. They brainstorm ways to make every dollar count, to use social media not just for slogans, but for real conversations. This is grassroots politics in its rawest form, fueled by passion rather than endless cash. What makes his candidacy so compelling is the gamble at its heart. He is betting that voters, even in Texas, are hungry for honesty over perfection, for authenticity over political choreography. He knows he will be labeled as too progressive by conservatives and too rebellious by his own party leaders. But he also knows that this in-between space, this willingness to disrupt the old script, is where the possibility of something new exists. On the campaign trail, his speeches often circle back to one theme: the disconnect between national politics and the everyday lives of Texans. He tells stories of small-town families juggling multiple jobs, of farmers worried about drought and water shortages, of teachers leaving the profession because they feel abandoned. He ties these stories to his belief that faith is not about empty rituals, but about standing up for the vulnerable. His tone is not that of a firebrand preacher, but of a neighbor speaking plainly across the fence. For viewers watching this campaign unfold, it feels like a test case. Can a young, religious Democrat, critical of his own party's establishment, mount a viable Senate run in one of the toughest political landscapes in America? Can he turn the language of reset into a movement that inspires people beyond the partisan lines drawn over decades? His chances, according to analysts, are slim. But history shows us that movements often begin with underdogs, willing to step forward, willing to risk defeat in order to plant seeds for the future. The final picture is this: a candidate who knows the odds are against him, yet chooses to walk onto that stage anyway, to look voters in the eye and say, "We don't have to accept the way things are. We can reset, we can rebuild, and we can do it together." Whether or not he wins the Senate seat, his run forces a conversation Democrats have been avoiding. It shines a light on the possibility that in Texas, of all places, a reset might just begin with one young lawmaker daring to imagine something different. As his campaign trail winds across Texas highways, through dusty rural towns and bustling city centers, what becomes clear is not just his desire to win a seat in the Senate, but his determination to spark a broader awakening. He tells voters that politics should not be a game played by elites, but a covenant between leaders and the people they serve. He acknowledges the skepticism, the fatigue, the feeling that nothing ever changes, but he insists that a reset begins when ordinary citizens believe it in. The crowds are small now, but each handshake, each conversation, each promise made eye to eye carries a weight that no television ad can buy. And perhaps that is his greatest weapon, the ability to connect through sincerity in an age drowning in performance. Whether history remembers him as a senator or simply as a young man who challenged a broken system, his story is already leaving its mark on Texas.